Hi everyone, welcome to John's Briefs, again with the Baron of Barristers, Tim Forshee from Forshee Law. You absolutely should get your NFA trust from Tim. If I have said this before, I will say it again. We're here at C2 Tactical. I did a seminar here not long ago and somebody said, John, who's the attorney that I call? If I'm in a self-defense case, if I have a use of force in anywhere in the Phoenix metro area, I'm calling Tim.
Wow.
He is the guy that I want to defend.
That's a huge compliment, thank you.
He is the guy. And I will say, how am I going to reach Tim? Well, I'm going to call the FLP line because he is a program attorney with Firearms Legal Protection. I'm going to hang up with them real quick. I say, you call Tim, we'll see who gets there first. And I'm going to then start ringing his phone. Hey, buddy, I need some help.
Say, please call me directly.
Yeah. We'll get them to pay for it later. But I want to specifically here talk about this idea. We're still talking a little bit here about the case of Arizona versus Elliot, because in this case, he was charged with what is called, what is known in Arizona as Shannon's Law, an unlawful discharge of a firearm inside city limits. And that sucker gets charged as a felony.
It does, class 6.
Class 6.
Dangerous.
Dangerous felony, and that means you lose rights and you lose them forever.
The rest of your life. You can never, ever get that set aside, that's right.
So I want to talk about that and whether or not in a case like this, these kinds of charges are appropriate. To win the fight after the fight, you need help. After a use of force, I trust Firearms Legal Protection to help me win the fight for the rest of my life. From their 24/7 attorney-answered hotline to coverage for the use of all legal tools, Firearms Legal Protection has you covered. Get a discount by signing up at the link below. You got to go and read, look at some of the stuff on the other stuff on John Elliot that we've done on the channel to get some context here. But, this is the first case that I've been involved in, which was shooting a dog that got all the way to trial. Because I would think the vast majority of times, a dog's running at you and you shoot that dog, you're not going to end up with charges because hopefully the prosecutor goes, whatever, man, have a nice day. In this case, it didn't. But this whole thing of unlawful discharge of a firearm was at least envisioned because somebody shot into the air. And we had a kid that died from the bullet coming down.
Shannon Smith.
Yeah, Shannon Smith.
Her dad, Otis, was a friend of my partner at the time. I remember vividly, the day it happened. It was horrific. We're all sobbing in our offices. It was terrible. Yeah.
And our legislature responded to that by this unlawful discharge of a firearm statute.
Otis shepherded that through. He was a champion for his daughter's memory and got that pushed through. Yeah. And candidly, with all due respect to Shannon and her memory, and she's passed, and obviously her dad, Otis, since has passed too, unfortunately, but we didn't need that law because we already had disorderly conduct with a firearm, and there was already at least 2 other statutes that you could charge somebody with a class 6 dangerous felony for doing this. But my understanding is they started enforcing this more, and as a result of that, we've seen a real reduction in celebratory gunfire on New Year's Eve and the 4th of July. Hard to believe it at 11:55 on New Year's Eve from what I hear around. But apparently it has actually gotten better, and that's a good legacy for this little girl. So.
Well, and again, the statute itself says, whoever recklessly or negligently fires, and those words are important.
Very important.
They get this idea of recklessness means a wanton disregard for the safety of others.
And I got no problem with that being charged as a felony.
Sure.
If you're drunk and you're shooting your gun in your backyard in the air, I got no problem with you being a felon for the rest of your life. That's unacceptable, dangerous, stupid, risky behavior. But if I'm cleaning my gun, and I'm doing an administrative reload or unloading of my gun, and I clear the chamber, and then I take the magazine out, and then I dry fire my gun, and it goes bang instead of click. Hope you followed rule 2, and I hope it went into the baseboard of your closet. And if it did, lay on the floor until you stop crying and stop pooping yourself, and then shut your mouth the rest of your life. If it didn't leave your house,
don't answer the door.
And I always ask people, have you ever been laying on your couch with your front door open? That 2 days in Arizona that we call autumn. I think it's November 7th and 8th, I think, before it was called. So I'm laying
April 25th, the perfect day.
My door's open, my screen door's closed, and I can smell orange blossoms, and I'm watching a football game, and I hear what I think is a single gunshot. Not a gunfight, but a single gunshot. What do? You grab the phone and call the cops? Hey, I just heard a gunshot.
I go,
nobody
anything
does
else
that.
going on there?
So I would say over the years, I'm guesstimating I've represented probably 30 people in this case, right? And I'm not making this up. Every single one of those people where if the round stayed in the house, right? Every single person where the round stayed in their house, the reason they got arrested was because they called the police and self-reported. Hey, I just thought I'd let you know. I just had a negligent discharge in my bedroom. The round went into the floor. Everybody's fine, but I thought I'd let you know in case one of the neighbors reported it. Thanks, Mr. Forshee. What was your address again?
We'll be right there.
Show up knocking on your door and ruin your life. Honesty is not always the best policy, especially when we're talking about about unlawful discharge cases. So
Class
if you're
6 is
certain
dangerous.
that you followed Rule 2 and you are certain the round did not harm anyone or leave your home, then shut your big fat mouth, because they will not give you a good citizen's award for self-reporting.
Well, just remember, what do we call that when you have a round that fired when you really shouldn't have?
ND.
We call it a negligent discharge.
Yep.
And therefore, again, what is the unlawful discharge of a firearm statute? Anyone who with recklessness or negligence.
That covers everything except for intent.
And it covers anything except for intentional. Yep. So
the only time you're legally allowed to fire a gun in city limits in the state of Arizona, there's 2 instances: in defense of a human life or at a licensed facility where you're allowed to fire guns, like a shooting range, like the one we're in right now.
Yeah.
Other than that, if I go out to the parking lot here and I'm messing around with my gun and the gun goes bang, it's a class 6 dangerous felony, unless I'm in fear of my life and I shoot somebody, period. And there are 0 exceptions.
Right.
So the law's not very friendly on this one. You got to be really, really careful.
So in the case of John Elliot, they charged him with that. And I said, wait a minute. My big thing was that it was neither reckless nor dangerous or nor negligent what he did. He intentionally fired his gun. This was not a reckless or negligent act. This was an intentional act. He fired 1 shot. It hit the dog that he intended to hit, and that ended the threat. Prosecutor made a big deal, by the way, about, well, wait a minute. In self-defense, don't you teach to fire multiple shots? I said, no, sir, we teach to fire until the threat stops. And we do see on camera many times people fire a single shot and then assess. Now, we can talk about whether that's the best tactic.
That might not be the smartest thing, but yeah.
But it's very common, and therefore, as it commonly is practiced, that's actually not uncommon. Right. Well, no, and he was like, you could tell he was surprised. Wait, what? No, I see it all the time. I see people fire a single round all the time. Well, but shouldn't they do more? So you're saying that he should have fired more rounds?
How many rounds do you want to pump into the lifeless corpse of the puppy dog, sir? Yeah.
So that was weird, but again, charged him with unlawful discharge of a firearm. Now, even though in the statute it says that if you again are defending your life against an animal attack,
then that's an exception to the charge.
It literally, C9 says this is a defense against this charge.
This was essentially a lesser included. They were just trying to, they're just trying to pile on. If we can't get them on that one, maybe we can get them on this one. Yep. That's what they were doing there. Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute. Now on the animal cruelty charge, they charge him with animal cruelty. Now, again, I would agree if you shot a dog that you didn't need to shoot, if you just shot a dog who's in the neighborhood because you didn't like that dog, then yeah, you should be charged with negligence, with animal cruelty, right?
And Shannon's law.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because that's reckless and negligent what you did. But recognizing that didn't happen here, and again in that particular charge, it says if you shoot an animal that is under the care or custody of another person without the owner's consent or without legal privilege,
right?
And so then again, prosecutors like, well, there's no such thing there as legal privilege. I said, well, counselor, legal privilege. I said self-defense. The justification defense is a legal privilege defense. I did a thing that would normally be a crime, but I had legal privilege to do the thing. And I'm like, I literally, in pretrial interview, I said, sir, you're the one who graduated from law school, not me. I know what legal privilege means. I think you should too. Like, come on.
If a police officer has to shoot a crazed killer as he's beheading people on the street, didn't he discharge a fireman in city limits?
Sure.
But the legal privilege was self-defense and defense of third parties. It was completely legal as a result of that.
Legal privilege. Now, not every state has a statute like Arizona in terms of, an unlawful discharge, but many do, and an awful lot do. And no state in the union will let you just, choo, 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 and just have some fun, shooting in the air.
Thank goodness.
We don't want Taliban wedding ceremonies, as it were. And so don't do those things, right? So only fire your firearm if you have to, if you need to in order to defend your life, or if you're at the shooting range practicing and having a good old time. Or hunting, I suppose.
Or hunting. And when you have that inevitable negligent discharge that I'm sorry to say, the old saying is there's gun owners that have had one and there's gun owners that are going to have one. When it happens, I pray you follow Rule 2, because the clients I've had where they fired it through their closet into the adjoining apartment, or they fired through their front window into the house across the street, ain't no getting out of that one, right? But if you followed Rule 2 and you were aiming the gun at the baseboard as you unloaded it or loaded it in your living room and it went bang instead of click, and you're certain that the round is buried in your subfloor, lay on the ground until you stop crying and stop pooping yourself, and then shut up for the rest of your life. Best advice I can give you.
Yeah, I can tell you. So in the Asp Dry Fire Challenge group, we have just over 5,000 people in that group now. From what we have had reported to us, we've had something like 45 negligent discharges by people
that's
overall.
0.1%. That's too high. Yeah,
it's way high, and that's people who have admitted to them.
Yeah.
So how many of us have actually had one higher than that? Yeah. And in particular, I know of one that happened here in Arizona, happened in Casa Grande, and that person. Class 6 dangerous felony charge. Eventually, the prosecutor let her plead that down to a misdemeanor. But even with that pleading down to a misdemeanor, she's had a heck of a time getting an apartment.
Yep.
She's had a heck of a time with employment.
It's not just a misdemeanor, it's a misdemeanor involving weapons.
Yeah, a misdemeanor involving weapons. And so, again, watch that stuff. This particular case, again, it never should have been charged.
No.
But I also say, remember, the process is the punishment. And you may beat the rap, but you can't beat the ride.
Yep.
So
and the ride sucks.
The ride sucks. Yep. It's the worst ride of your life. So again, only use deadly force, certainly against a dog, if you feel like you have to.
We've said it 1,000 times. Using deadly force successfully, appropriately, and not being charged will be the second worst day of your life.
Yeah.
Only thing worse is if you didn't and you died or somebody you cared about died.
Right.
So make sure that that's your only other choice. And then use it.
And in John's case, he had to. I mean, otherwise he was at least going to the hospital.
Yeah. And
even if the dog just knocked him over. He's 75 years old. In fact,
and the rate of infection from dog bites is incredibly high. And you're 75. And
super high.
That could have easily proven to be fatal.
Totally.
Yeah.
Again, especially for a 75-year-old man. So he had to. And when you have to, the alternative is I'm going to die today. Well, if we got to take the ride, we take the ride. And he did, and he came out on top. And he's a good man. Like he's a good dude. We're hoping. I asked through the attorneys again. I only met him in court. Generally speaking, I try to not be involved with the defendant because I want to be as objective as I can.
You don't want to be tainted.
Full, fair, and unbiased opinion. But I did meet him in court. Asked the attorney this week, hey, would you give John my contact information and see? I'd love to have him on the podcast.
Great, yeah.
We would love for him to share on the podcast.
And lovely double jeopardy. Doesn't matter what he says now.
Yeah, he's been prosecuted.
Yeah,
it's done, and the state is done with him. Thank you, Jesus. So watch that stuff, guys. Watch those. That unlawful discharge can get you hemmed up big time,
Mess you up bad.
and sometimes prosecutors can use it maliciously too.